In this episode, we're here to visit Mike. Hey Mike, you're home?
Yeah, come on in, Tom.
We're here to visit Mike this week in Irvine.
Hello.
Hey, check this out, man.
Welcome to my yard.
Thank you for inviting this thing over. So, really easy question, Mike. How do you get into bonsai?
Okay, I got into bonsai 2 times. The first time I saw the Karate Kid, so I was a Karate Kid recruit. I saw Mr. Miyagi showing Daniel-san how to do, just picture it in your mind and snip, snip, and you have a beautiful bonsai tree. And I thought, well, that looks easy. So I got a bonsai tree. It was a Christmas gift, actually. It was my first one. It was an indoor juniper, and I kept it indoors, and I watered it once a week, like the instructions said, by dunking it into a tub of water, and it died pretty quickly. So I wanted to get another bonsai tree, and I went down to what was at the time the coolest bonsai nursery around, which was Murata Bonsai in Westminster, and it had all kinds of trees, and they were just magnificent, and I want to do this. So I bought a few trees, I went to a couple meetings, I got the books, and I didn't really learn how to do bonsai very well. I didn't get a teacher. I didn't really interact much at the meetings because everybody else had way better trees and they were 20, 30, 40, 60 years older than me. And so it just wasn't very good. And slowly my trees died until I got to this house, which we've been in for like 21, 22 years. And I was down to like 2 trees that hadn't died, and they were both boxwoods, and I just planted them up on the hill here. They're now in pots. And I forgot about it. I'd started a business, I was raising a family, I didn't have time for bonsai, and I wasn't very good at it, so I gave up. And then about 10 years after that, we were at Orange County Fair, and Kofu Bonsai Kai was doing a display at the Orange County Fair. And I saw a whole bunch of cool trees there, and more importantly, my younger daughter saw a bunch of cool trees there, and she thought that was really fun, and she wanted to do it. And so I said, let's go to the meeting tonight. And we went to the meeting, and I remembered how much I liked bonsais, and I decided to start doing it for real. And so this time I was able to buy better material. I got lessons. Manny Martinez became my teacher. I interacted at the meetings. I learned how to do it, and it just worked out a lot better the second time around.
So you kind of like put your shears down for a good, 10, 15, 20 years?
A good 10 years.
Okay. And you picked it up.
But the shears didn't die. They were still in the garage. And so I was able to break those out. I still even had some pots. So, and I now have a lot more pots. In fact, I now make my own pots. So.
And then what area is this considered now for you?
What area?
This area right where we're at right here.
We're slightly inland Orange County. We're not too far from the hills. We do get a lot of wind sometimes when the Santa Anas come through. The fires get kind of close.
Oh, your fire were pretty close. You said last time it was like 2 blocks away. You said.
Yeah, it was like 200 yards away.
Oh,
we had to evacuate. Oh. I didn't take any of my trees with me. If we didn't have time, if I wanted to, I could have maybe taken 1 or 2, but
there's no time to think. You just got to go.
Yeah, we just had to go. That was kind of frightening. I closed the spa. There's nothing you can do about the waterfall, but I closed the spa because the last time a fire had gotten that close, I left the spa open and it was charcoal soup. So, yeah. Had to drain it and refill it 3 times to get it clean. So, so come on back. This area over here is where I put my most recently collected or repotted things. This stuff is all recently collected. This is an olive that was in my parents' backyard. And
awesome stump though.
I collected it in November, and it was not until April that it started pushing its first little bit of growth. I thought maybe I'd botched it, but it's now coming back strong. These are some bougainvillea that were growing in a friend's yard, and she wanted them gone and hired some gardeners to rip them out. And she knew that I like to do this, so she called me up and said, there are some stumps in the back of my gardener's truck if you want to come get them. And I said, I'll be there in 30 minutes. And they survived. This one's doing okay. This one's thriving. The rosemary's not doing so hot.
It's a free tree, right? You can't complain.
It's a free tree, right?
You can't complain.
No, you can't complain. In fact, if you get 10 of them and only one of them survives, that's still a good deal. So this is a project I'm working on where the idea is eventually to show it at eye level, where the viewer would be looking like that.
Kind of cool. So you kind of,
so there'd be like
I can walk through there. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
So it's in the early stages of development. I like to do sort of off the wall things like that. Let's.
Avant-garde, you know?
Avant-garde, yes. I actually learned the Japanese word for avant-garde. I don't remember it, but I wrote it down and I put it in front of some of my trees at one of the Orange County Bonsai Society shows. This is where I propagate cuttings. I do most of my cuttings in diatomaceous earth, which is one of my favorite ingredients. When I can't afford to put akadama in all my mixes, I substitute diatomaceous earth for the akadama. So most of my stuff is in diatomaceous earth and pumice with sometimes a little bit of potting soil for the deciduous trees. But DE is what I do all my cuttings in, and they do very, very well. I have a very high success rate with my cuttings here. And it gets misted twice a day.
Up there. That's kind of cool.
I do have mist coming off the sprinklers here.
Talk about sprinklers. It's all hand watered on this side?
It's almost all hand watered on this side. The sprinklers do hit the stuff that just got repotted here. The rest of this I got to come through with a hose. And
this is a lot. This is about 40 minutes of watering by hand?
If I'm lucky, I can get it done in 30. And if everything's really dry, and in fact I've got a water here, but this is starting to look kind of dry here.
That's a nice oak tree.
It can, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Collected?
I got that one at the club, so I don't know if that was collected or if that was grown. I think I was told that was grown from an acorn, but cool. I may be confusing it with another tree. This is one of many nerifolias that I've propagated from a cutting.
Nerifolias. Those things are, they're pretty bulletproof for us here in Southern Cal.
They are. They grow very, very well. They grow easily from cuttings, and they thicken up fairly quickly. This is my mother tree for my Itoigawa cuttings and grafting scions.
How's your success rate out here? Do you have a little more onshore breeze than I have out in the Inland Empire?
Yeah, we get a pretty good onshore breeze. It's not quite coastal, but we're, I don't know, maybe 10 miles from the coast, so it's not too bad. It's only bad when we get the Santa Anas. Okay. It dries out something fierce when we get the Santa Anas, but the rest of the time, yeah, we get an onshore flow, and we sometimes get the May gray and the June gloom that doesn't burn off until the middle of the day. So,
get really nice temperatures out here.
Yeah, and the collection goes all the way to the end.
Okay, go walk and talk.
This is a California juniper.
This is what, when we collect California juniper, this is what we're looking at. Something eye candy, or like, we can collect that, and you get home and like, dang, that's a big tree.
Yeah, when you walk up to it, you look, oh, that's a small one, right? And then the closer you get, the less small it becomes. So this one was the size of a car when I first saw it. This is not collected from the Mojave Desert. This was, I call it one of my practice trees. There was a guy with a piece of property right near Lake Matthews in Riverside County. It's not far from here. It's like maybe a 45-minute drive from here. And I heard he had a bunch of California junipers on his property he was going to bulldoze. So me and my friend Doug went out there and we said, we'll take them all out for you for free. And we did it just because we wanted the practice, so the next time we had a chance to go out to the Mojave, we'd have a higher success rate, because the beginners don't do very well. And I'd see some of the old timers going, oh yeah, you should have a 75% success rate. And all us beginners were like, I'm lucky if 1 out of 4 survives, So I got some practice with trees like this one. Stylistically, it's kind of a mess, but if it never turns out to be a great tree, that's okay, because this was one of the trees that taught me how to successfully get a California juniper out of the ground and have it keep living. So.
And I noticed you have a we'll talk about when we get on that side, but you have a missing system to keep it like going, because I know a lot of people will have some aftercare. I mean, I think aftercare is almost more crucial than the collecting and the growing process than anything else.
Yeah, I think that's true. And when I collect something like a California juniper, I don't water them. I've got a misting system that I would turn on. I put on a timer, and every 4 hours it gets 2 minutes from the fogger misters. And so it doesn't put a whole lot of volume of water there, but it gets all of the foliage wet fairly thoroughly, and it gets it wet 6 times a day. And so I would do that for the first couple of months, and then they don't move at all, and I don't start watering them for several months. And then once they get through that stage and I start seeing fresh growth from the tips, then I know that they probably are doing okay, and I'll start watering them more regularly. And then I just let them sit there in the pots for, they're all in huge pond tubs. Like pond, yeah, this is a pond liner, or beverage tubs from Smart and Final, or something like, or I get shipping crates.
Shipping crate,
and I'll put them in a shipping crate. We walked past it earlier, but the grapevine at the very entrance is in a shipping crate that's about this wide and about this tall. And the first thing I had in that shipping crate was a California juniper that's now in one of the tubs.
Awesome.
So,
let's keep looking. What you got?
I also got a bunch of little ones. So I've got some Californias like this. And the fun thing about these is you can actually still bend and twist these quite a bit. And you can take cuttings off of these, and they'll actually take.
Really?
I've never been able to get a cutting to live from like one of the older trees, but off the younger ones, I've been able to get cuttings to root. So,
and it continues. It's like my old house. It keeps doing more stuff. I love it.
Yeah. So,
let's go over there. Let's talk about your ficus.
This ficus?
Yeah.
So I got this ficus from Joe James a few years ago. It had one branch that was dying. It's now in the back. I don't really like the scar that it left, so I've turned it around. This tree requires a lot of time. You have to defoliate it, and that takes a lot of time. But I like the way the canopy has developed. I like the way the roots have developed. It's obvious. It looks like an old banyan tree, and I really like this one. Behind it is one of my original bonsai trees.
You gotta grab it so people can get a really good look at it.
So,
that's our first tree, you said?
Well, this is one of the two that is still around from my first stint in bonsai. And this is a tree, if anybody watching is in Kofukai, they might remember this tree about, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. It was one of the 2 trees that I had on the hill. I dug them up, I put them in pots, and it was huge. The canopy was like this. And I had in my mind that I was going to style it like a majestic oak tree or something. And I took it to a Kofukai meeting where Roy was doing, and Roy was the guy whose trees they used in Karate Kid too, so it was kind of cool. Roy was doing a critique and advising what to do with the tree, and he looked at my tree and he said, "Oh yeah, this is a good tree, but this is not your tree." And he takes a red Sharpie, and from a point that was at the time about here, he takes the red Sharpie and he goes like this and this and this. He goes, "This is your tree." And then he starts sawing off all the branches. And I'm standing there with my daughter, and we must have had a funny look on our face because the whole room just started cracking up. And then Roy looks over, he goes, "It's okay, I cut." And I was like,
"Oh, after the fact."
Oh yeah, he was, I think one branch was already off.
In his hand too, probably?
Yeah, oh yeah. And I'm like, yeah, if you think that's what we need to do. And so he ended up leaving just stumps, and at the very tip, he left a single leaf. And so this is the only tree in my collection that we have given a name, and the name is Milo, and it's named after a character in Avatar: The Last Airbender named Milo, and I guess there's some scene where Milo is dancing or learning to fight or something, and Milo's friends or teachers, somebody is saying, "Be the leaf, Milo, be the leaf." And so as we were leaving, my daughter's like, "Be the leaf, be the leaf." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Your tree's like Milo now, Dad. It has to be the leaf." And so we named it Milo, and that's, like I said, that's the only tree that we've given a name to.
Awesome. And how long has that tree, after Roy have like, not say butchered it, but restyled it, how long has that been now?
It's been many years, and it's gone through a lot since then. It started out about maybe this tall, and it started sprouting stuff maybe 6 weeks after he cut everything off. And so then it was kind of a triangle shaped thing, and I just decided I'm just going to keep making it shorter and shorter. And then it actually had an apex, and the apex broke off of it when the tree was over there, and a branch from my dead white birch tree fell on it. So so I got to rebuild the apex one more time on that tree.
Man.
But that's okay. Milo survived, and we like Milo.
If someone has a video link or a newsletter from that time period, I would love it. Put in the in the comment section, and then maybe we'll do an update on it when we come back.
I have some pictures of what it looked like right after. Here, I can share those. This is a tree. The tree. Whoa. This one, the tree's not so special to me, but I like the pot because this is one of the first, shall we say, unorthodox pots that I made as a potter.
Are you getting into pottery too now?
I'm into pottery too now. I got into ceramics a year ago, and I've started making pots. I've got a bunch on the table over there that I can show you in a minute. Mostly I'm making shohin pots, but I've started making faux wood hand-built slab pots that are kind of cool. I've got a couple in the kiln right now. Another tree that there's a little bit of a story. This is my one California juniper that I collected back when Harry Harrao used to take everybody on Mojave Desert collecting runs.
I heard of those stories because I got in right after Harry stopped going on collecting trips.
I think this was his last trip with Kofukai. I know he did other trips after that. He did a trip that fall with GSBF. But this might have been his last trip with Kofukai. At least it was the last trip I was able to go on with Kofukai. And I went with my same daughter who got into bonsai with me. And we miscalculated how long it was going to take. And we found ourselves 20 miles away from the Denny's at the time that they were all going to be leaving Denny's to go to Jawbone Canyon. And luckily I knew where Jawbone Canyon was, so I called Manny Martinez and I said, "I'm still like 20 minutes away." And he said, "Well, you can either turn around and go home or you can drive real fast if you know where we're going, but once they lock the gate, you can't get through." And so I drove very, very fast through the Mojave Desert to the edge of Jawbone Canyon, and then I went at an unsafe rate through Jawbone Canyon.
Did you not incriminate yourself on camera?
The statute of limitations has passed, and it was just an unsafe rate. I probably could have gone to traffic school, but I was like, hey, I don't want to go 200 miles and not even get a chance to try and dig out a tree, not even get a chance to kill the tree. And we got there as they were unlocking the gate. So we got in and we collected. I think we only collected this one tree. I don't think we collected a second one that died. I think this was it. We collected the one tree, and we were happy with it, and it survived. And I've now, the hardest part, I got it to survive, and then I got to reduce the roots so it fits in a pot. And the next thing I'm going to do is actually the styling of it. Nice. So it's been like 7 or 8 years. So.
Have you been working with other masters lately in this area? Because I know it's COVID. It's been a weird year and a half. It's been totally been a weird year and a half.
Yeah, lately, no, I haven't had any, since Manny Martinez passed, I haven't had any formal instruction from anyone. I've learned a lot from Tom Vaughn, just going back and looking at old videos from when he goes to a club and does all these, amazing things. That I've learned a lot from, and I can always ask Tom a question if I want to, and he's very generous with his time.
He is very awesome.
But no, I haven't. And through COVID, it's been like watching YouTube or just coming out here and working on my trees.
Awesome.
So, One of my favorite trees is right behind you. This is actually not a tree that I can take any credit for, but this is a tree that my teacher, the late Manny Martinez, developed. I love this tree. I bought this from his estate when he passed. It's a tree that I know that he showed at Daiichi at least once, and I think he may have shown it at GSBF once or twice. The pot is so shallow. It's really quite remarkable.
And it's a femina, is that correct?
It's a femina. I'm actually scared to repot this one, but I'm going to have to do it soon. And it's sitting on top of a turntable that used to belong to Harry Harrao. I actually refinished it with a new board because the board was starting to deteriorate. But that was Harry Harrao's. I won that one from one of the special ticket pulls at GSBF a year or two after Harry passed. The pots up here are pots that I made.
Go show them all. Let's look at a couple of them.
So,
Be proud of them.
yeah, okay. I've been making a lot of Shohin pots or small round pots.
Do you have a chop?
I don't have a chop. I need to get a chop.
Oh, I think it's time to have a chop.
I know. I need to get a chop. This one actually my daughter made.
Oh.
This odd one I made. This was part of the beginner's ceramics requirement. You had to make two different geometric shapes and combine them. And so I was like, well, how do I make this into a bonsai pot? Accent plant. So this is an accent. So I'm going to let the sedum sort of flow over it like that. And that'll be an accent pot. These are just more Shohin pots. These are all done on the wheel. I've also done a bunch of hand-built stuff. I've got one of the trees over there is in an oval hand-built slab pot. This is this is one that I made. This is a weird one. I didn't throw this on the wheel. The clay got too dry. This was from clay that was left over from the spring semester when we had to abandon the studio because of COVID.
Oh no.
So we got back into for the first time, we got back into the studio in February or March of this year, and the clay was too hard to work with. So I was like, I'll just trim a pot out of it. So I took a big whole chunk of the clay that was too hard, and I made a sort of pancake out of it, and I just cut away all the parts I didn't want to keep. And it looked a little bit like a slab from,
So that clay's been sitting out for like 9 months.
more than 9 months.
Oh, more than 9 months?
Yeah, more than 9 months. So it had been more than 12 months. Or it'd been at least 11 months. This was my first attempt at a moon pot. But it looks kind of cool.
Let's look at your wall of weird. Some people may not understand the wall of weird for Mike Walsh here, but I'm going to have to explain the wall of weird.
Yeah, so, okay, this is my wall. The pots over here, by the way, I made those pots as well. I really like the glazing on this one.
That's like droopy. That's nice. It's almost Namako.
Yeah.
Sea urchin.
But the top shelf is my kind of my oddball stuff. Before I had show quality trees that I had developed myself, I wanted to put something in the show. And I thought, well, if I can't have the tree tell a story with the typical bonsai methods of, refinement and deadwood, I'll tell stories in a different way with my trees. And so this one back here, when I showed this tree, the soil was up higher and I had a tiny little truck in there, and it was meant to evoke an image of the tree tunnel, the Wawona tree tunnel in Yosemite. The next time I show that one, the cut's going to go much higher and it's just going to look like a lightning struck tree. This is a tree that was meant to look like it's the sole survivor from a clear cut, and I actually had a little serrated piece of metal that looked like a bandsaw had broken off and stuck in the tree, and that's why they had to leave this one behind. This was one where it's grown out a bit. You see I got some deadwood here on this part of the boxwood, and this was a dead boxwood. It's hard to kill a boxwood, but I have killed a couple. And so I threw that in the fire for a little bit, and we took a we took a car and burned it out, a toy car, and we made it look like the car had crashed into the tree, and the tree and the car had caught fire and it had burned part of this tree, and the other tree had survived.
So it's more of a miniature storytelling versus a traditional display.
That's a fair way to describe it, I guess. This is a tree. Okay, this one I was inspired by watching the music video for the Gorillaz Feel Good Inc., where a guy was on a chunk of land that just floated up into the sky and had a tree growing on it and a windmill, and I thought, that looked kind of cool if there was just a rock floating in the sky with a tree growing out of it. And so I cut this out of some pumice, and I put a tree into it, and the tree's okay. It's nothing special, the tree. And then I put creeping fig down below. It took me 2 years to get the creeping fig to grow so that it completely covered the reinforced steel on all three posts. So it looked like this huge rock was just kind of floating on top of the ivy, and so that one was kind of fun. And you can't really see this one, and I've taken the other tree, the dead trunk out. But this was a tree that I got, I don't know, from some bonsai nursery, and it had this weird shari here. And so I thought, well, you know, if another tree fell over onto it, that would kind of explain the shari. So I took a struggling tree that I didn't really care if it survived, and I killed the rest of it, and I had it look like it had tipped over and was stuck at the bottom of the shari like that. So it looked like that's how that happened. And then this is, I built what looked kind of like the remains of a famine era Irish cottage that had been abandoned and had trees growing through it. This was a concept from when I went to the west coast of Ireland. I saw a lot of houses that looked like that, and they had full-blown, you know, mature trees coming out of the inside of the stone house.
Is that like homemade brick? Or that tile work? Is that tile that I can't tell what it is?
Yeah, this is grout with. I guess those are from what would be floor tile, and I broke all the individual pieces off.
Okay, I was like, that looks like floor tiles for some so good.
I laid them like they were blocks of stone.
That's really cool, though.
And then I let it fall into disrepair and put a tree in it. So.
Very cool, though. That's different. You know, it's your own way of storytelling without being under the rules and regulations of traditional.
They're fun. They're fun, and most of the people that said anything about them said that they liked them and thought they were fun, and the purists who didn't like them were polite enough not to say anything. So you know, everybody seemed to enjoy it. The collection goes on over here.
Oh my God! Look, people, it goes all the way across.
It goes almost all the way around, yeah. And we have a larger backyard than most people in this area, so we've got a ways to go before we completely fill it, but we're getting there. We got a couple Californias here.
I noticed you have a large amount of boxwoods in your collection. Any particular reason why?
I started out doing a lot of boxwoods because they were very accessible, and I could get like a whole hedge worth of boxwood just by answering an ad on Craigslist or offering to take out somebody's hedge.
Are you the guy that says, I will pull out boxwoods on Craigslist back in the days?
I don't think I placed any ads saying that, but if I did, I've forgotten. I don't know, maybe I did. But I did get a lot of boxwoods that way off of Craigslist from people that wanted to get rid of a hedge. Yeah, now that I mentioned it, I think we did have a thing.
I saw something in Orange County that says, I will pull out boxwoods or trees for free.
Yeah, you know, I think we did do that. It wasn't just for me. The club did it. I mean, we got a few hits, and the OCBS went out there with, like, you know, at one point I think we had 8 or 10 guys that went to some of these things. Anyway, everybody gets 3 or 4 trees, and it was cool. We've had other digs that weren't boxwood. We'd take out stuff other than boxwood, but the boxwoods were easy to get.
There's common land.
And you could kind of dig them out any time of year, and they'll do fine.
That is true.
You know, if someone's like, oh, I've got this Japanese black pine, and I got to tear it out if you guys don't want it, and it's August, forget about it. You know, it's well, a neat tree, but you're probably not. No matter what your aftercare is, it's probably going to die. The boxwood, one of these sets of boxwoods, the homeowner had ripped them out with a chain and his truck and had them sitting on the lawn and put a Craigslist ad out saying, "Come get them if you want them." And it was first weekend of September, 106 degrees, and they were sitting out there all day.
Kindling wood, right?
Yep. And I went there and got as many as I could load in my SUV, and it wasn't all of them. And the guy said, "Well, I'm going to rip out the other half next week if you want some." And I said, "Sure." So I went back the next week and I took a whole bunch more. There were 2 left from the previous week, and they had been sitting on this guy's lawn, roots exposed, for an entire week, second week of September. And I was like, "Well, I'll take those 2 as well." And I took those 2, and they survived. It was just so, and you know, they're hard to kill. They're interesting. They've got good trunks. You know, some of them are. You can get some really fat trunks from old boxwood hedges, and they cost nothing. You know, you go to Home Depot, you get a 5-gallon that has a trunk like this. They want like $29.95 for it, and yet people let you dig something like this up from the yard for free.
Awesome.
So there's nothing terribly remarkable back in this corner. This is just stuff I'm growing out. This looks like a flowering elm, but of course the flowers coming off the rose down here. This is a fun plant. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but you'll hear more from me about that plant in the future.
You will. Trust me, you will, people. You will. It'd be a very unique experience.
Yeah. Some of the stuff here, I've got bougainvillea that we grew in the ground because when they were given rebates for tearing out your lawn and replacing your turf with...
This is like 10 years ago, wasn't it?
No, it was maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
Right when we had that drought, right?
Peak drought.
Peak
yeah,
drought.
like I don't know, 2014, 2016, something like that. And after I tore out the lawn, I still had like $800 to spend of rebate money that, you know, if I don't spend it, I don't get it. And if I spend it, everything I get is free. So bougainvillea was on the list, and a few other things that are you know, future bonsai material were on the list. So I planted these bougainvillea and totally paid for by the government. And at some point soon, I'm going to rip that sucker out and I'm going to make it into bonsai. We got other bougainvillea here that's collected that, you know, will become bonsai soon. I've got more California junipers over here. I've got just a whole bunch of stuff.
Let's look at your aftercare system. It's right here.
So, well, the aftercare system is currently in disarray because I haven't needed it in a long time.
We haven't collected either. So.
But I've got these hoses hooked up to a bib over there. That's
and that's a little spitter right there.
Yeah, and so these all put out. Well, they all have fogger misters. And so when I was collecting the California junipers, I would have fogger misters that were attached both to the tubing and attached to extension 1/4-inch tubes, and I'd place those strategically throughout the foliage, and that's what would get, you know, every 4 hours, 2 minutes of fogger mister for several months, and it worked. I mean, I had very, very high success rates.
This is the location you have it at.
This is the location, and the reason I would have it in this location is it would get morning sun. In the afternoon, it would be sheltered from the direct sunlight from the wall as well as from the tree.
Okay,
So
shady.
yeah, so it would get plenty of sunshine, but it wouldn't get the hottest part of the afternoon where, you know, it burned to a crisp.
Awesome.
So
You know, I think I'm finding a pattern here where people are you know, they're collecting well and they're surviving well. It's that aftercare. I think I really need to document and really solidify kind of the commonalities between all the good collectors and people who have really good aftercare with survival rate, and what are they doing?
the aftercare makes a big difference. As far as the soil, I planted it usually in either pure pumice or sometimes pumice with some DE.
Yeah.
And they all develop lots of fine roots.
Diatomaceous earth, not DG.
Sorry, DE, yeah, diatomaceous earth. I heard recently, I've been using this since Manny introduced me to it 8 years ago, but I was recently watching something on Bonsai Mirai, and somebody asked the question of
Akadama versus DE?
Yeah, what's the best substitute for Akadama if you can't get Akadama? And he said the number one substitute for Akadama is diatomaceous earth. So yeah, that makes sense. It's been working for me for a long, long time. I don't have any luck if I use Turfus. I've completely eliminated Turfus from my soil mix.
Oh, did you use Turfus too?
Yeah, and it was not good.
It's great for baseball fields, I hear.
I'm sure it is. This is where all my soil ingredients are. Most of my soil ingredients are in.
Okay, this when you need to. Home Depot's, you like Home Depot and Lowe's?
I do, yeah. Now, this isn't all for bonsai. This is also stuff for the garden, but some of it's for bonsai. Like I've got some pre-made boon mix in here. I've got underneath here a couple of scoria. I've got Akadama, but most of my mix is in these trash cans. This is my my organic mix, and it's half fine like orchid bark and half potting soil, this Fox Farm stuff. And then the other two ingredients, the primary ingredients for most of the trees, I keep them in here, and it's pumice and diatomaceous earth. I get this from Orange County Farm Supply. I get the DE from either O'Reilly Auto Parts or Napa Auto Parts.
Really?
Yep. Yeah.
Really, like in big supplies? Because I know Orange County Farm is pretty big. I mean, you can get shovels full of stuff.
They're bags that are a little smaller than this, and they cost, I don't remember what they cost. They cost them like $12 a bag or something like that. So I'll get like 5 or 6 of them at a time. The guy goes, "Oh, you must
Spill some oil, right?
You must do a lot of work on cars." And I'm like, "No, I plant trees in this stuff." But I usually plant most of my stuff primarily in these two ingredients, but the things like maples, or actually anything that I'm worried is going to dry out, I'll add some of the organic mix to it, no more than 20% of potting soil and orchid bark, just so it retains a little bit more moisture if it's something I'm worried about it drying out. And so there are some species that can dry out more easily and are more susceptible to drying out. And then, like I said, my deciduous trees, I'll put some potting soil in that.
What's your watering during the summer? How does it look like? Is it twice a day?
Sometimes it's twice a day. Most of the time I can get away with once a day.
Okay. So you're much cooler than what we have out in the Empire area.
Yeah, I mean, right now we actually have an offshore breeze, but it's cool. It's not too bad. We're still only not quite through May, but in the summer, especially, actually it's not even the summer, man. It's like September, well, late September, October. The first couple weeks of October, right before the Halloween shift to cold that we always get. The first few weeks of October, week of those Santa Ana winds.
120.
Oh God, yeah. It's like 130 in the sun. And then we've got these 45-mile-an-hour winds like blowtorches trying to take out my trees. And then way over here in the corner is these are a couple of my bigger Californias that I haven't done anything with other than get them to grow. And these were all collected in the Mojave Desert. They were all collected on Bureau of Land Management property. I got a permit. I took pictures of birds for them and sent it in. They were really happy, and they let me go out and collect up to 10 trees at a time. And these, every time I'd go out there, I went out with a friend. Each time I took a different friend. And our objective would be get one big one, get a couple of small ones, and maybe 1 or 2 medium ones. And so we'd each try and come away with like 4 or 5 trees. And these all were different collecting trips. And the spot was, it was a good 45 minutes to an hour drive from where everybody typically used to collect in Jawbone Canyon, but it's out in that same region, the Mojave. And some of these trees are really cool. I already have a pretty good idea what I'm going to do with this one and this one. This one, I'm gonna let it keep growing and decide what's stronger and what's not so strong. And it, parts of the tree may die off and make my decisions easier for me. But these trees, I really like these trees. This branch over here, if I'm able to successfully copy Tom's cold steaming technique of softening the wood so that you can bend, thick, hard branches of juniper I'm going to pull that puppy down on the right, and if it fails, I'm just going to take it off completely, and my tree is just going to be the center part of it. But
That's very cool.
these are among the few trees in my collection that have water lines going directly into them, because it would be easy to forget these for a couple of days, and that would be devastating.
So, if you had one or two tips for beginners or club members, what would they be?
My number one tip for a beginner is go to meetings and get a teacher, and be active in the meetings, because the first time around I didn't talk to people, I didn't have a teacher, I didn't know what I was doing, and I failed miserably. My second time around, I was active in the meetings, I asked questions, I brought in trees even though they weren't great at first. I didn't worry about the fact that the people I was asking questions of had much better trees than mine. And then eventually, and what really made a huge difference was I got a teacher. And a lot of the stuff I learned, yeah, I didn't learn the avant-garde stuff from Manny, and he actually didn't really enjoy it that much, but he tolerated it. But he taught me, you know, everything I needed to know to get my trees to survive, because that's the most important part, is getting your trees to survive, developing the green thumb of it. And of course, without a teacher, your concept of styling it's difficult to keep all that stuff in your head without having it drummed in over and over and over again, and having somebody look and point out, you know, where you made the mistake. That made all the difference for me, was having a teacher.
That's awesome. Thank you, Mike, for your time today. You know what? If you guys like this type of video, like and subscribe. Thank you for everything, Mike. We'll talk to you guys see you guys in the flip flop.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.